Orlando, 1998. Amid the search for a new nighttime spectacular at Disney's MGM Studios, Michael Eisner turned to the show that had been dazzling audiences on the other side of the country. A new amphitheater was constructed, designed exclusively for the show, a mountain full of pyrotechnics surrounded by a moat for water projections. Truly a technical marvel for its time. We invite you, if you dare, to sit back and watch, because in tonight's episode, nothing will change. And this is now the worst. Fantasmic. Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing alright. If you're not, hopefully we can turn that mood around today. Anyways, growing up, Fantasmic was always one of my favorite things to see while I was in Disney. It was just so cool to see this epic story play out and watch Mickey defeat all the Disney villains with all the Disney characters coming out for that finale. It was awesome. Was, as in past tense, as in not anymore. But before I get any hate here, because I know how Disney fans can be, let me just clarify a bit. I'm only talking about the Disney World version, and even then I don't think the show is bad, but I mean, compared to all the other nighttime spectaculars in Disney World, I mean, come on, it's not even close. And in my opinion, there's two main reasons for that. It's technologically outdated, and it's narratively irrelevant. Okay, so I made a couple of notes of things I wanted to touch on before I fully dove into the script, but then election day turned into election week and I just never got around to it. But I did make this very specific note of water projections are lame. Projection mapping pog. So I guess I'll rant about water screens now. Also, before we get into it, hit that subscribe button if you like what I do here. It's completely free and it helps me out a ton. And you can always unsub later if you want, or if you just hate my take so badly after this video. Anyways, water screens. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, when Disney was first developing Fantasmic, the initial idea was to have 3 barges with big movie screens on them to play all the clips, which is, kinda lame, low-key. Like, if I want to watch a movie, I'll just go catch COVID at my local AMC. Thanks. But thankfully, in 1989, a man named Yves Pepin developed a technology that allowed you to project video onto water mist, which, I gotta be honest, is pretty cool compared to the alternative of just having big barges with screens. So, nice job, Yves. This is technology that's now 31 years old, and I get that it's multi-purpose and it kind of serves as a curtain while the sets are changing, but there's such an over-reliance on this technology that doesn't even provide a very clear picture because the show hasn't seen a meaningful update in like 20 years. The water screens are such a cornerstone of the show, but they're not the dazzler that they were 20 years ago. It's old technology that's made almost completely irrelevant by projection mapping, which, once again, I'd like to reiterate, is POG. It just occurred to me that my parents are probably watching this and have no idea what POG means, so let me put on my English teacher hat for a second. A derivative of the word PogChamp, Urban Dictionary defines POG as a word used to indicate excitement or an epic moment. So to use it in a sentence, unlike water screens, which are dog, projection mapping is POG. The thing is, if the water screens and lack of projection mapping was my only issue, then, well, I wouldn't really have a video, now would I? So now, on to one of my favorite new segments. These set pieces slash costumes are so garbage, like, oh my god, even for 1998 this was bad. Okay, literally everything in the animal segment is terrible. I mean, like, just look at all this. Like, where do I even begin? I mean, like, seriously, come on, half of these animals look like they were just ripped from Small World and then doused in glow sticks. I mean, like, seriously, come on, Disney. Was this really the best you could do? I will say, though, as bad as the alligator is, I still want it. I mean, like, Disney, come on, instead of selling your incredibly shitty Halloween costumes, why don't you just let me buy this? I mean, like, seriously, it couldn't have cost you more than $100 to make. Alright, enough of that. This next one's honestly quite a bit of a travesty. But just for context, here's the current Evil Queen Hag costume you can find occasionally in the parks. And here's the Evil Queen Hag costume from the 1999 sing-along Disneyland Fun. Horrifying, I know, but at least it looks decent quality. Now this is the evil queen hag costume used in Fantasmic. What happened? I would like to reiterate, Fantasmic premiered in 1998, which is 8 years after the Disneyland Fun video. So they had better costumes. I don't like, this looks like a cheap mask you can buy at Target, okay? Like, Disney, how do you drop the ball this hard? Oh my God, I don't get it. I don't get it. And like, I get that they need to be able to see out of it, but like, you have the regular Mickey Mouse costume there. Why do you, what? Oh my God. How does this happen? I mean, then again, I guess they were really able to get away with it because, I mean, no one really had a really good zoom camera at their disposal in 1998, so who would really notice? But now we all notice, Disney, okay? And you can't keep getting away with this. Anyways, I digress, because honestly, all of this pales in comparison to the biggest atrocity in Fantasmic, truly the most disappointing thing, the Maleficent Dragon. But just for a level of comparison, here's the Maleficent Dragon currently in Disneyland, and here's the Maleficent Dragon in the Disney World version of Fantasmic. I mean, like, come on. The dragon in Festival of Fantasy looks better than this, and that one's supposed to have an unfinished, like, steampunky aesthetic. I mean, like, seriously, you can't just throw a dragon head on a crane and call it quits. You guys just spent $3 billion on the most advanced park expansion yet, and then you have this. I mean, like, you mean to tell me you can afford to make Rise of the Resistance, but you can't build a dragon that just shoots fire? Are you serious, Bob? Do better. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Here's the thing though, even with all of that, it's still clearly an incredibly successful show. But even Illuminations, which in my opinion was way better than Fantasmic, just got too old, which is understandable. As much as I loved it, I can't argue that Illuminations wasn't a 20-year-old show with outdated technology. And that's the same issue with Fantasmic. It's just too technologically outdated to be the spectacle it should be. So obviously, you may be thinking, well, Josh, they could always just update it like they did in Disneyland. But here's the thing. I don't think they should. Now, to say Fantasmic is an easy show to follow is a drastic understatement, because there's literally nothing to follow. But just in case you need some convincing, allow me to explain the plot as quickly as I can. The whole thing takes place in Mickey's dream, right? So he's basically dreaming of the entire Disney animation library up until that point, in the same arc they usually tend to follow. We have the call to adventure at the beginning, where Mickey's basically just dancing around the stage to the main theme, followed by the making friends part. This is the Lion King Jungle Book segment I complained about earlier. Then there's the initial confrontation. This is the Pocahontas part. Then we've got some romance with all the Disney princesses and the absolute best musical segment in the show, bar none. But then the villains strike back. This is to mirror the villain song leading up to the final confrontation, but unlike the princess medley, we get just a bunch of villains talking on the water screens and the whole Jafar and Mickey confrontation. Bit of a missed opportunity there, Disney, I'm gonna be honest. But this all escalates to the final confrontation between Maleficent and Mickey, where Maleficent turns into the dragon, but Mickey pulls some Shark Boy and Lava Girl shit and is like, "But this is my dream, haha!" and defeats her with the power of positive thinking. Yeah. So yeah, narratively not terrible. It's certainly a great celebration of the Disney canon up until 1998, but there's really two main problems with that. For starters, Disney has had some absolute bangers in the last 20 years. Lilo and Stitch? Classic. Tangled? Iconic. Treasure Planet? An underrated gem. Moana? Straight up god tier. Frozen 2? Exists. Except for Lost in the Woods. That whole sequence is in a league of its own. My point is, the Disney library has expanded so much in the last 20 years that it just feels like there's so much missing from the show. Not to mention how just completely irrelevant that Pocahontas segment is now. Obviously, an update to the show could easily fix all of these problems, and I certainly wouldn't be disappointed by that. But here's the thing. Happily Ever After does the exact same thing as Fantasmic, but better. Allow me to explain. When Happily Ever After was introduced a few years ago, it replaced Wishes, which itself was introduced in 2003, replacing the opening day fireworks of Fantasy in the Sky. And Wishes occupied an interesting space narratively, because rather than celebrating Disney storytelling as a whole, it focused on just one piece of the narrative structure, making a wish. Which made sense, considering Disney World has pretty much always been known as the place where dreams come true. And it also had the added benefit of not stepping on Fantasmic's toes in being a redundant celebration of what Disney had to offer. But with Happily Ever After, that balance has shifted, because now Magic Kingdom's premier nighttime spectacular was this technologically incredible celebration of Disney music and storytelling. And I mean, it's also been regarded as one of the greatest shows Disney's ever produced, but I mean, you know, that's just a little footnote. So that leaves us with a little bit of a predicament. What's the point in updating Fantasmic if it's just going to make one of their shows irrelevant? Now, the argument could be made that Fantasmic is more of a celebration of characters than story, and as a result doesn't really interfere with Happily Ever After, but that's just not true. But that doesn't mean we can't have a show occupy that space more in the future. In fact, I think Fantasmic's replacement should be a celebration of characters more than anything else. But they'd have to lean into that. Unlike Happily Ever After, Fantasmic has the added benefit of being a primarily staged production. As in, it's primarily actors on a stage rather than fireworks in the sky. But still, why not lean into that more? Now, all that said, this is usually the point in the video where I would make my own version of Fantasmic and just have that play for the rest of the video. But Fantasmic costs $30,000 a night to put on. Not to mention the millions of dollars that went into research and development for the show, which I don't have. But what I do have is an education in television development and production, and if that's taught me anything, it's how to make one hell of a pitch. So allow me to pitch for you my replacement for Fantasmic. Hi, my name's Josh, and before we get started, I just want to thank you so much for letting me pitch for you today. Oh hey, my name's Josh. Anyways, what do you got for us? Yeah, Josh is for life. But anyways, Fantasmic. We know it. We love it. We want some more of it. But let's also be real. It's not doing so hot these days. You know, the technology, it's super outdated, and it's kind of trying to do the same thing as Happily Ever After. Like, we need something new. Which is why I'm here today to pitch for you a yet untitled replacement for Fantasmic. Seems underprepared, but okay. I actually am pretty prepared, but let me prove it. The show basically follows Mickey as he traverses the worlds of a bunch of classic Disney films, including Hercules, Peter Pan, The Little Mermaid, along with Goofy and Donald Duck. Okay, but is there a reason they're visiting all these places? Oh, I am so glad you asked. Basically, all the Disney villains are trying to capture all the princesses so they can plunge the worlds into darkness. This sounds a lot like the plot to Kingdom Hearts. Let me finish. Anyway, so basically every segment would end with a little theme where Mickey and friends seal off the world from darkness. That's literally what happens in Kingdom Hearts. I'm not done! This would all culminate in a big final battle between Mickey and Maleficent's dragon because, you know, she's like the go-to villain. Is that all? Because it still sounds a lot like Kingdom Hearts. Oh yeah, and Donald Duck's a wizard. Get out of my office!